She lost her job for staying silent during her own humiliation. 24 hours later, she walked into the boardroom where her abuser sat waiting for a promotion. But this time, she wasn't there to serve coffee. She was there to chair the meeting. Mia Torres had been serving coffee and scrambled eggs at the Sterling Bistro for 11 months. It wasn't the job she'd imagined when she earned her business degree 3 years ago, but student loans didn't care about dreams. Every morning at 5, she tied her dark hair back, pinned on her name tag, and prepared herself for 8 hours of forced smiles and aching feet. The tips were decent on good days, barely enough on bad ones. She'd learned to read people quickly in this job. The businessmen who lingered over their coffee were usually generous. The lunch crowd was rushed but fair. And then there were the ones who looked through her like she was part of the furniture. She lived in a studio apartment 20 minutes away by bus, a cramped space that smelled faintly of the Chinese restaurant downstairs. Her walls were covered with sticky notes, reminders of bills due, groceries needed, and buried somewhere beneath the anxiety, a few motivational quotes she'd written during her more optimistic moments. Most nights she collapsed into bed too tired to even scroll through her phone. This was survival, not living, and she felt the difference in her bones. The restaurant itself sat on the edge of the financial district, a place where power lunches happened and deals were made over wine that cost more than her weekly paycheck. Mia had grown accustomed to the marble floors, the soft jazz playing overhead, the way sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows in the afternoon. It was beautiful in a cold, untouchable way. She existed in this world but would never belong to it. On a Thursday afternoon in late September, Victor Chen walked in with a woman Mia had never seen before. Victor was a regular, though calling him that felt too casual for someone of his stature. He owned half the commercial real estate in the city, his face occasionally appearing in business magazines left behind by customers. Mid-40s, always impeccably dressed, he carried himself with the quiet confidence of someone who'd never heard the word no. He usually came alone, ordered the grilled salmon, left a 20% tip exactly, and worked on his laptop for an hour before leaving. Professional, predictable, forgettable in the way that very rich people often were. But today, he had company. The woman was stunning in an effortless way, her blonde hair perfectly styled, her designer dress probably worth more than Mia's car. She laughed too loudly at something Victor said as they were seated at table 7, right by the window. Mia grabbed 2 menus and approached with the water pitcher, her practiced greeting already forming on her lips. She filled their glasses and set down the menus. The woman, whose perfume was strong enough to taste, barely glanced up. Victor nodded his thanks, but there was something different in his eyes today, a slight edge that Mia couldn't quite read. She recited the specials, keeping her voice pleasant and clear, then stepped back to give them time to decide. From her station by the kitchen, Mia watched them the way she watched all her tables, alert for the subtle signals that meant they were ready to order. The woman kept touching Victor's arm, leaning in close, performing intimacy for anyone who might be watching. Something about it felt calculated, like a business transaction disguised as romance. When Mia returned to take their order, the woman looked directly at her for the first time. Her eyes traveled from Mia's face down to her sensible black shoes and back up again, a journey that somehow felt like an insult. Mia had been looked at this way before, assessed and dismissed in the same glance, but it never stopped stinging. "I'll have the Nickwise salad," the woman said, pronouncing it with exaggerated precision. "But I want the tuna seared, not canned. The dressing on the side, no potatoes. Extra olives. Make sure the lettuce is actually fresh, not that wilted garbage I got last time I was here." Mia blinked. "I'm sorry, but I don't think you've been here before." "I would remember." The woman's expression hardened. "Are you calling me a liar?" "No, I just meant just bring the salad. And try not to mess it up." Victor cleared his throat softly but said nothing. Mia wrote down the order, her hand steady despite the heat creeping up her neck. She took Victor's order, the same grilled salmon as always, and retreated to the kitchen. The lunch rush picked up, and Mia moved between tables with practiced efficiency, refilling drinks, delivering plates, clearing away the remains of expensive meals. She tried not to think about table 7, but the woman's voice seemed to echo in her head. When she brought out their food, she set the plates down carefully, making sure everything was exactly as requested. The woman poked at her salad with a fork, her face twisted in disgust. "This is room temperature. I can't eat this." Mia felt her stomach tighten. "I can have the kitchen warm it up for you, or I can bring you something else." "I don't want something else. I want competent service." "Is that too much to ask?" The woman's voice rose just enough that nearby tables turned to look. "Do you even know what you're doing? Or did they just hire you because they felt sorry for you?" The words landed like slaps. Mia's face burned, but she kept her voice level. "I apologize. Let me take this back and we'll fix it right away. Don't bother." The woman pushed the plate away. "I've lost my appetite." The smell of mediocrity tends to do that. The restaurant had gone quiet. Mia felt every eye on her, felt the weight of public humiliation settling over her shoulders like a wet blanket. She reached for the plate, her hands trembling slightly, hating herself for showing even that much weakness. Victor finally spoke. "That's enough, Clarissa." But Clarissa wasn't finished. She looked up at Mia with cold satisfaction. "You know what? I don't think you're suited for this job. Victor, darling, you know the owner, don't you? Maybe you should have a word with him. Places like this need to maintain certain standards." The implication hung in the air, sharp and cruel. Mia stood frozen, the plate still in her hands, feeling something crack inside her chest. This wasn't just rudeness. This was someone actively trying to destroy her livelihood because they could, because she was convenient and powerless. Victor's jaw tightened, but he didn't defend her. He didn't tell Clarissa to stop. He just sat there, and his silence felt like betrayal, even though Mia knew she had no right to expect anything from him. Mia set the plate down on a nearby tray, stand and walked away before anyone could see the tears threatening to spill. She made it to the staff bathroom, locked the door, and pressed her palms against the cool tile wall. She allowed herself 30 seconds to feel the full weight of it, the humiliation and helplessness and rage. Then she washed her face, reapplied her lipstick, and went back to work because she had no other choice. The rest of her shift passed in a blur. Victor and Clarissa left without dessert, and Mia noticed he left a $50 tip on a $40 check. She didn't know if it was guilt or pity, and she wasn't sure which would be worse. She divided it with the busboy who'd helped her, pocketed her share, and tried to forget the whole afternoon. But when her manager called her into the office at the end of her shift, Mia's stomach dropped. She knew before he said anything, saw it in the uncomfortable way he avoided her eyes. "Mia, I got a call," he started, and she could hear the apology already forming. "From Victor Chen, he's asked that we let you go." The words didn't make sense at first. Mia stood in the cramped office, her manager's voice becoming distant and muffled, like she was underwater. Victor Chen had called. Victor, who had sat silent while his date verbally demolished her. Victor, who had left that generous tip she'd mistaken for conscience. He hadn't been trying to make amends. He'd been saying goodbye. "I'm sorry," her manager continued, and he did look genuinely uncomfortable. "You're a good worker, Mia, one of my best, but Chen owns the building. He's friends with the owner. I don't have a choice here," Mia heard herself ask when her last day would be. Heard him say effective immediately. Heard the words about her final paycheck being mailed. She collected her things from her locker in a daze, her hands moving on autopilot. The other servers watched her leave with sympathetic eyes but said nothing. Everyone understood the unspoken rule. The powerful could crush you on a whim, and there was nothing fair about it. She rode the bus home in silence, staring at her reflection in the window. 11 months of early mornings and aching feet. Gone because she'd had the audacity to exist in the presence of someone's cruelty. The unfairness of it burned in her chest, but beneath the anger was something more frightening. Fear. She had 2 weeks of rent saved, maybe 3 if she stopped eating anything beyond ramen. Her student loans wouldn't pause for unemployment. Her landlord wouldn't care why she couldn't pay. That night, Mia didn't sleep. She updated her resume, applied to every server position within a 20-mile radius, and tried not to calculate how quickly her small savings would evaporate. By 3 in the morning, she was staring at her ceiling, replaying the humiliation over and over, wondering if she could have handled it differently, knowing it wouldn't have mattered either way. The next morning, her phone rang at 7. Mia almost didn't answer the unknown number, assuming it was a spam call. but something made her pick up. Is this Mia Torres? A woman's voice, professional and crisp. Yes? This is Jennifer Park from Chen Industries. Mr. Chen would like to see you today at 10 o'clock. A car will pick you up from your address at 9:30. Mia's grip tightened on her phone. I don't understand. Mr. Chen had me fired yesterday. There was a pause. I'm aware. He'd still like to see you. The address is 1500 Financial Plaza, executive floor. Please don't be late. The line went dead before Mia could respond. She sat on her bed, her mind racing through possibilities, none of them good. Was this some kind of power play? Did Victor Chen get off on humiliating people twice? Or was this about money, some legal settlement to keep her quiet about wrongful termination? She almost didn't go. Pride told her to ignore it, to refuse to dance when the puppet master pulled her strings. But curiosity was stronger, and beneath that, a small desperate voice that whispered she couldn't afford to turn down anything. That might help her situation. The car that arrived was a black, set in with leather seats that probably cost more than her monthly rent. The driver was silent and professional, navigating morning traffic with ease. Mia watched the city pass by, her neighborhood giving way to gleaming towers of steel and glass. Financial Plaza was one of the tallest, its lobby all marble and modern art that she'd never understand. A woman in an expensive suit met her at the elevator bank. Ms. Torres? This way, please. They rode to the 42nd floor in silence. Mia's reflection in the polished elevator doors showed a woman in her best interview clothes, her face carefully neutral, but her eyes betrayed her exhaustion. When the doors opened, she stepped into a reception area that looked like it belonged in a museum. Mr. Chen is expecting you, the receptionist said, gesturing toward massive wooden doors. Mia pushed them open and stepped into an office that could have fit her entire apartment 3 times over. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a view of the city that took her breath away. And there, behind a desk that looked like it was carved from a single piece of dark wood, sat Victor Chen, but he wasn't alone. Standing near the windows, backlit by the morning sun, was a woman Mia had never seen before. She was in her 50s, silver hair cut short, wearing a navy suit that spoke of quiet authority. When she turned, Mia's breath caught. The woman's eyes were familiar, devastatingly so. Thank you for coming, Miss Torres, the woman said, her voice warm but commanding. My name is Elena Chen. Victor is my son. Mia's mind reeled, trying to connect pieces that didn't fit. Victor stood, and for the first time since she'd known him, he looked uncomfortable. I need to explain something, he began. But his mother raised a hand, silencing him with a gesture. Let me, Elena said, moving closer to Mia. Yesterday my son made a terrible mistake. He allowed his date to humiliate you, and then he compounded that mistake by having you terminated. What he didn't know was that I was having lunch 3 tables away. Mia's legs felt weak. She'd been so focused on her own humiliation, she hadn't scanned the rest of the restaurant. Elena continued. I watched the entire incident. I saw how you handled yourself with grace under completely unjustified cruelty. I also saw my son's cowardice. She glanced at Victor, who had the decency to look ashamed. I raised him better than that, Mom, Victor started. But Elena wasn't finished. I've been the CEO of Chen Industries for 30 years, she said, returning her attention to Mia. I built this company from a single property investment into what it is today. And I've been looking for someone to eventually take my place on the board. Someone with not just intelligence, but integrity. Character that can't be bought or taught. Mia's heart was pounding now. I don't understand. I had you investigated last night, Elena said matter-of-factly. I hope you'll forgive the intrusion, but I needed to know who you really were. Business degree from state, graduated summa cum laude despite working 2 jobs the entire time. You turned down a corporate position 3 years ago to care for your sick mother, until she passed. You've been working service jobs since, paying down her medical debt along with your own student loans. You've never missed a payment, never asked for help, never complained. She paused. You have the kind of backbone this company needs. Mia felt dizzy. Are you offering me a job? I'm offering you an opportunity, Elena corrected. A position in our acquisitions department starting immediately. full benefits, competitive salary, and a chance to prove yourself. If you're as capable as I think you are, you'll be leading that department within 2 years, and you'll have a seat at the table where decisions get made." The room seemed to tilt. Yesterday she'd been fired from a waitressing job. Today she was being handed a corporate position by one of the most powerful women in the city. It felt like a dream, the kind she'd stopped letting herself have. "There's something else," Elena said, and her voice grew harder. "At 10:30 this morning, we have a board meeting. Clarissa Whitmore will be there. She's the daughter of one of our board members, and she's been angling for a director position for months. She thinks her last name and her father's influence guarantee her a seat." Elena's smile was sharp. "I'd like you to join us. I'd like her to see exactly who she tried to destroy." Understanding dawned. This wasn't just about opportunity. This was about justice, about showing someone who'd wielded power carelessly that actions had consequences. Victor stepped forward, and Mia saw genuine remorse in his eyes. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I should have stood up for you. I should have defended you. Instead, I let Clarissa push me into making that call. I was weak and you paid the price. This doesn't fix it, but maybe it's a start." Mia looked between them, at the mother who'd seen a moment of grace under pressure and decided to bet on it, at the son who was learning a hard lesson about courage. She thought about her empty apartment, her dwindling savings, the applications she'd sent into the void just hours ago. She thought about Clarissa's cruel smile, about being made to feel small and powerless. "Yes," she heard herself say, "I'll take the position. And I'll join your board meeting." Elena's smile widened. "Good. Jennifer will get you set up with everything you need. We have 20 minutes. Those 20 minutes passed in a blur of paperwork, contracts, and a crash course in the company's acquisition strategy. Jennifer Park, who turned out to be Elena's executive assistant, was efficient and kind, filling Mia in on key details while someone else brought her a proper business outfit from somewhere. When Mia looked at herself in the executive washroom mirror, she barely recognized the woman staring back. She looked like she belonged here. The boardroom was exactly what she'd imagined. A long table, leather chairs, walls lined with photos of properties and developments. Board members filed in, powerful men and women who controlled millions in assets. And then Clarissa entered with her father, her confidence evident in every step. She didn't notice Mia at first, standing near the windows in her borrowed suit. Clarissa was too busy greeting other board members, playing the role of the dutiful daughter, ready to join the family business. When Elena called the meeting to order and Clarissa finally took her seat, her eyes swept the room and landed on Mia. The recognition was instant and devastating. Clarissa's face went pale, then flushed red. She looked at her father, at Elena, back at Mia, her mouth opening and closing without sound. "Before we begin," Elena said, her voice carrying easily across the room, "I'd like to introduce our newest acquisition specialist. Mia Torres will be heading up the downtown development project, and she'll be reporting directly to the board. Mia, please join us." Mia walked to the empty chair next to Elena, feeling Clarissa's shocked stare burning into her. She sat down, folded her hands on the table, and met Clarissa's eyes with steady calm. There was no triumph in her expression, no gloating, just quiet strength. Elena continued the meeting as if nothing unusual had happened, discussing quarterly reports and future projects. But everyone in the room understood what they'd witnessed. A woman who'd been cruel without consequence had just learned that the world was smaller than she thought, and karma had a way of keeping score. After the meeting, as board members filed out, Clarissa tried to approach Mia, but Elena intercepted her smoothly, suggesting they discuss appropriate professional conduct in her office. Clarissa left with her father, her earlier confidence completely shattered. Victor found Mia in the hallway. "For what it's worth," he said, "I really am sorry. And my mother's right about you. You're going to be great at this," Mia nodded. "Thank you. And Victor, next time someone treats another person like they're worthless, don't stay silent. It costs more than you think." He met her eyes and nodded. "I won't, I promise." That evening, Mia stood in her tiny apartment looking at the sticky notes on her wall. The anxious reminders, the motivational quotes she'd stopped believing in. She began pulling them down one by one. Not because she didn't need reminders anymore, but because she was ready to write new ones. Reminders about courage, about standing firm when the world tried to make her small, about the unexpected ways life could turn on a single moment of grace under pressure. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that justice sometimes does prevail, hit that like button. Share it with someone who needs to hear that their moment might be coming too. Subscribe so you don't miss more stories about ordinary people facing extraordinary challenges and coming out stronger on the other side. Tell us where you're watching from. Remember, the next time someone tries to diminish you, hold your head high. You never know who's watching, and you never know when your grace under fire might open doors you didn't even know existed.